Are you unknowingly trapped in financial quicksand, slowly sinking deeper into debt while thinking you're living the American dream? What if I told you that the very lifestyle choices that make you feel successful are actually the biggest threats to your financial future? The truth is, there are 7 deadly money traps that keep millions of middle-class families stuck in a cycle of financial mediocrity, and chances are you've fallen into at least 3 of them without even realizing it. My name is Nick, and I help people recognize the financial landmines that destroy wealth before it even has a chance to grow. If you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck despite having a decent income, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if this information helps you escape these costly traps. Here's something that might shock you. According to recent studies, the average middle-class family is actually worse off financially than families from previous generations, despite earning more money than ever before. This isn't because they're lazy or financially illiterate. It's because they're systematically falling victim to modern money traps that previous generations never had to navigate. These traps are designed to feel comfortable, even responsible. They're marketed as smart financial decisions, necessary investments in your future, or simply the natural progression of a successful life. But underneath the glossy marketing and social pressure lies a harsh reality. These decisions are quietly draining your wealth and keeping you dependent on your employer for decades longer than necessary. The most dangerous part about these money traps is that they often disguise themselves as signs of success. When you fall into them, you actually feel like you're doing well financially. Your friends and family might even congratulate you on your smart choices. Meanwhile, your net worth stagnates or even decreases, and your financial independence slips further and further away. Before we dive into these 7 wealth destroyers, let me ask you something. When you think about your financial situation, do you feel like you should be further ahead than you are? Do you ever wonder why, despite earning a decent salary and making what seem like responsible choices, you're still struggling to build meaningful wealth? If you're nodding your head right now, you're not alone, and more importantly, it's probably not your fault. The first money trap that devastates middle-class wealth is one that most people consider a rite of passage into adulthood. It's so normalized in our society that questioning it almost seems ridiculous. Yet this single decision can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime and keep you trapped in the rat race for decades longer than necessary. Trap number 1 is buying too much house too early. Now, before you start thinking, I'm going to tell you that renting is always better than buying, hear me out. Homeownership can be a fantastic wealth building tool when done correctly. The problem is that most people approach it completely wrong, turning what should be an asset into a massive liability that consumes their financial future. Here's what typically happens. A young professional gets their first decent job, maybe they're earning $50,000 or $60,000 a year, and suddenly they feel ready to become a homeowner. They've been told their whole life that rent is just throwing money away, so they decide it's time to build equity instead of making their landlord rich. Sounds reasonable, right? But then the trap springs shut. They talk to a mortgage lender who tells them they can afford a house worth 4 or 5 times their annual income. The lender shows them payment calculators that make a $300,000 mortgage seem manageable at just $1,500 per month. What they don't emphasize is that this is just the principal and interest. Once you add property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and all the other costs of homeownership, that monthly payment easily doubles. Suddenly, this person who thought they were making a smart financial move finds themselves spending 60 to 70% of their take-home income on housing-related expenses. They have no money left for investing, building an emergency fund, or pursuing opportunities that could increase their income. They're house rich, but cash poor, trapped in a beautiful prison of their own making. The psychological impact of this trap is devastating. Because they own a home, they feel successful. Their parents are proud, their friends are impressed, and society tells them they've made it. Meanwhile, their financial flexibility has been completely eliminated. They can't take risks that might lead to higher income because they have massive monthly obligations. They can't invest in their future because every dollar goes. Even worse, they often to keeping their oversized house, justify this situation by telling themselves they're building equity. But here's the harsh reality, not equity. You're essentially in the first decade of a 30 vast majority of your payment goes to interest. Year mortgage, the paying rent to the bank while taking on all the risks and responsibilities of ownership. The second trap that destroys middle class wealth is one that preys on our desire for convenience and social status. It's a decision that most people make without really thinking through the long-term consequences, yet it can easily cost you more than $100,000 over your lifetime. Trap number 2 is the new car addiction. This trap is particularly insidious because it feels so reasonable. After all, you work hard, you deserve reliable transportation, and you want something that reflects your success, right? The problem is that new cars are one of the worst investments you can possibly make, yet millions of people treat them like essential purchases. Here's how this trap typically unfolds. Someone gets a promotion or a new job, and they decide they deserve an upgrade from their perfectly functional older vehicle. They walk into a dealership thinking they'll spend maybe $25,000 on a nice, reliable car, but then the salesperson starts working their magic. They show you cars with all the latest features, superior safety ratings, and that new car smell that somehow makes you feel more successful. Before you know it, you're looking at vehicles that cost $40,000, $50,000, or even $60,000. But don't worry, the salesperson says you can finance it over 7 or 8 years, making the payments surprisingly affordable. This is where the trap becomes truly devastating. That $50,000 car isn't just costing you $50,000. When you factor in the loan interest, insurance premiums, rapid depreciation, and opportunity cost of the money you could have invested instead, the true cost approaches 6 figures. You're essentially paying the price of a small house for something that will be worth a fraction of its original value in just a few years. The opportunity cost is what really hurts. If instead of spending that money on a depreciating asset, you had invested it in index funds earning historical market returns, that $50,000 could grow to several $100,000 over your working career. You're not just buying a car, you're trading away your financial independence for a few years of driving something shiny and new. But the psychological aspect of this trap makes it even worse. Once you've experienced the luxury and convenience of a new car, going back to something older feels like a step backward. So when the loan is finally paid off, instead of celebrating your freedom from car payments, you often trade up to an even more expensive vehicle, restarting the cycle and ensuring you'll have car payments for the rest of your working life. The third money trap that keeps middle-class families stuck in financial mediocrity is one that's heavily promoted by financial institutions and even encouraged by the tax code. It's presented as a smart way to manage your finances and build credit, but it's actually a sophisticated system designed to keep you paying fees and interest for decades. Trap number 3 is the credit optimization game. This is the belief that you need to strategically use credit cards, take on various forms of debt, and constantly monitor your credit score to build wealth. While having good credit can certainly be beneficial, the obsession with credit optimization often leads people to make financial decisions that benefit banks more than themselves. Here's how this trap typically manifests. Someone learns that having multiple types of credit can improve their credit score, so they open several credit cards, maybe take out a small personal loan, and start playing the points and rewards game. They tell themselves they're being financially savvy by earning cash back and travel rewards while building their credit history. The problem is that this approach fundamentally changes your relationship with money. Instead of focusing on earning more and spending less, you start focusing on managing debt and maximizing rewards. You begin making purchasing decisions based on which card offers the best rewards rather than whether you actually need what you're buying. Even worse, the complexity of managing multiple credit accounts often leads to mistakes. Maybe you miss a payment deadline, carry a balance longer than intended, or simply spend more than you would have with cash because the psychological pain of spending is reduced when using credit. These seemingly small mistakes can cost thousands of dollars in fees and interest over time. The credit optimization trap also keeps you thinking like a consumer rather than an investor. Instead of asking how you can increase your income or reduce your expenses, you're asking which credit card offers the best rewards for your spending patterns. You're optimizing the wrong thing entirely, focusing on getting tiny percentages back on money you're spending instead of finding ways to keep more of the money you earn. This trap is particularly dangerous because it makes you feel financially sophisticated while actually making you more financially fragile. The more complex your credit situation becomes, the more opportunities there are for something to go wrong, and the more mental energy you spend managing debt instead of building wealth. The fourth money trap that silently destroys middle-class wealth is one that feels incredibly responsible and forward-thinking. In fact, it's so widely accepted as good financial planning that questioning it almost seems irresponsible. Yet this trap can easily cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity and keep you working years longer than necessary. Trap number 4 is the traditional retirement planning fallacy. This is the belief that you should put away a small percentage of your income into employer-sponsored retirement accounts and let time do all the work. While saving for retirement is obviously important, the way most people approach it is fundamentally flawed and designed more to benefit financial institutions than the people saving the money. Here's the typical scenario. You start a new job, and HR tells you about the company's fantastic 401k plan. They'll match up to 3% of your salary, which is free money, right? So you sign up, contribute just enough to get the match, maybe bump it up to 6 or 8% if you're feeling ambitious, and then forget about it for the next 30 years. The problem with this approach is that you're essentially outsourcing one of the most important aspects of your financial life to people who have no incentive to help you get rich quickly. The financial services industry makes more money when you save slowly and steadily for decades than when you build wealth rapidly and become financially independent. Think about it logically. If you contribute a modest percentage of your income to retirement accounts that you can't touch without penalties until you're nearly 60 years old, you're guaranteeing that you'll be dependent on your employer for your entire working career. You're also accepting that you'll need to work for 40 plus years before you can afford to stop, which is exactly what the system is designed to encourage. But here's what really makes this trap devastating. While you're putting away 8% of your income and feeling responsible about your retirement planning, you're missing opportunities to invest larger amounts in assets that could generate income much sooner. Instead of building wealth that could make you financially independent in your 40s or 50s, you're following a plan designed to keep you working until traditional retirement age. The math is actually quite sobering. If you save 10% of a $50,000 salary for 30 years and earn reasonable returns, you might have enough to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. But if you had focused on dramatically increasing your income and investing larger amounts in the first 15 years of your career, you could potentially achieve the same result in half the time. The traditional retirement planning trap also assumes that you'll want to maintain the same lifestyle in retirement that you have during your working years. But what if instead of planning to spend the same amount of money when you're 70, you planned to be financially free when you're 45? So what if instead of accepting that you need to work for 4 decades, you focused on building enough wealth to have choices much earlier in life? The fifth money trap that keeps middle-class families financially stuck is one that's become increasingly common in our subscription-based economy. It's a trap that starts small and seems completely manageable, but it gradually grows into a monster that can consume hundreds or even thousands of dollars per month without you even realizing it. Trap number 5 is subscription creep and lifestyle inflation. This is the gradual increase in recurring monthly expenses that happens so slowly you barely notice it, but over time, it completely eliminates your ability to save and invest meaningful amounts of money. Here's how this trap typically unfolds. It starts innocently enough with a few streaming services. Netflix seems reasonable at $15 a month, especially compared to cable. Then you add Amazon Prime for the free shipping, maybe Disney Plus for the kids, and before you know it, you're spending $60 a month on entertainment subscriptions alone. But the trap doesn't stop there. You discover Meal delivery services that save you time. You sign up for a gym membership you rarely use because canceling feels like admitting defeat. You get a subscription box for coffee, another for razors, maybe one for clothes that sends you curated outfits each month. Each individual subscription seems small and reasonable, but collectively they're bleeding your budget dry. The psychological aspect of this trap is particularly clever because these expenses are automatically charged to your credit card each month. You don't feel the pain of spending the money. It's not like writing a check or handing over cash. The money just disappears from your account. And because each individual amount is relatively small, you don't really notice the cumulative impact. Even worse, as your income increases over time instead of saving and investing the extra money, you tend to inflate your lifestyle to match your earnings. That promotion that gave you an extra $500 per month somehow gets absorbed by a nicer apartment, more expensive groceries, additional subscriptions, and other lifestyle upgrades that feel reasonable but completely eliminate the financial benefit of earning more. This trap is particularly insidious because it prevents you from ever feeling like you're making financial progress. Even as your income grows, your expenses grow right along with it, keeping you in the same financial position year after year. You're like a hamster on a wheel, working harder and earning more, but never actually getting ahead. The opportunity cost of subscription creep is staggering. If you're spending an extra $200 per month on various subscriptions and lifestyle inflation compared to what you actually need, that's money that could be invested. Over 20 years, assuming reasonable market returns, that $200 per month could grow to well over $100,000. You're literally trading your financial freedom for convenience and minor lifestyle upgrades. The sixth money trap that destroys middle-class wealth is one that feels incredibly responsible and shows that you care about your family's future. It's promoted heavily by financial advisors and insurance companies as essential financial planning, yet it's often one of the worst financial decisions you can make. Trap number 6 is the whole life insurance obsession. This is the belief that you need expensive, permanent life insurance policies that combine insurance coverage with an investment component. While term life insurance can be an important part of financial planning for people with dependents, whole life insurance is typically a terrible financial product that benefits insurance companies far more than policyholders. Here's how this trap typically unfolds. You meet with a financial advisor or insurance agent who tells you that term life insurance is just throwing money away because you'll never get anything back if you don't die during the term. They present whole life insurance as a smart alternative that provides permanent coverage while building cash value that you can borrow against or use for retirement. The sales presentation sounds compelling. You're told that whole life insurance is a conservative, guaranteed way to build wealth while protecting your family. The agent shows you illustrations of how your cash value will grow over time and explains how you can use policy loans to fund major purchases or supplement your retirement income. It sounds like the perfect solution, combining protection with investment growth. But here's the harsh reality of whole life insurance. The fees and expenses built into these policies are enormous, often consuming most of your premium payments for the first several years. The investment returns are typically far below what you could earn in the stock market, and the insurance coverage costs much more than equivalent term life insurance. When you break down the math, you'd almost always be better off buying inexpensive term life insurance for protection and investing the difference in low-cost index funds. The combination of cheap term insurance plus market-based investments will typically provide more insurance coverage and dramatically better investment returns than any whole life policy. But the insurance industry has created a sophisticated marketing machine to convince people otherwise. They use terms like guaranteed returns and tax-free growth to make whole life insurance sound more appealing than it actually is. They prey on people's fears about market volatility and their desire for simple, one-size-fits-all financial solutions. The opportunity cost of falling into this trap is massive. If you're paying $500 per month for a whole life insurance policy when you could get the same coverage with term insurance for $50 per month, you're wasting $450 monthly that could be invested for much better returns. Over 20 or 30 years, this difference can easily amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost wealth. These 7 money traps aren't accidents or unfortunate side effects of modern life. They're carefully designed systems that profit from keeping you financially dependent. The good news is that recognizing these traps is the first step to escaping them. Start small, question everything that feels normal, and remember that building real wealth often means doing the opposite of what everyone else considers reasonable. Your financial freedom depends on it.